With the press, the World Health Organization has referred to Omicron as a variant of concern. Dozens of Japanese tanks are participating in a major exercise on the northern island of Hokkaido. It's a display of military power that coincides with the recent escalation of Chinese and Russian military moves around the Japanese territory. Baseball's Hall of Fame opening its doors next summer to at least 6 new members.
The Hall's Golden Days Era Committee elected 4 players representing the years 1950 to 1969. Pitcher Jim Cott won 283 games in a 25-year career that ended in 1983. He won a record 16 Gold Gloves. First baseman Gil Hodges was an 8-time All-Star, mostly with the Brooklyn Dodgers. He later managed the 1969 Mets to a World Series title. Outfielder Tony Oliva won 3 batting titles in a 15-year career with the Minnesota Twins. Minnie Minoso was a Negro League All-Star. He eventually became the first black player for the Chicago White Sox. The Hall's Early Era Committee selected Buck O'Neil and Bud Fowler. Bob Mortale, Fox News.
The Kennedy Center Honor is returning Sunday night to a live gala with the presence of the president for the first time since 2016. Former President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump skipped the show the first 3 years he was in office, and the COVID-19 pandemic forced organizers to bump the annual December ceremony back to May of this year. I'm Paul Stevens, and this is Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
We buy a homeowner's policy and never give it another thought until something happens. Life brings changes, and our coverage needs can change. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
The holidays are here, and you know what that means. Time to gather with family and friends, dress up our homes, and explore Christmas season in paradise. Why not share these moments for a chance to win $100 in cash? Log on to visitguam.com/Instagram today to participate in the Guam Visitors Bureau #Instagram photo and video contest. A winner will be chosen every week, so share your best holiday moments now and win. Brought to you by GVB, making Guam a better place to live, work, and visit.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck. 0 down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at GuamAutospot.com.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Not today, not tomorrow, not Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And I'm going to be here to tell you the same thing every one of those days, enjoying every single minute of it. The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, some of the best reading you'll find anywhere. If you haven't read the Constitution yet, it's a good read. I'm going to start out with the Second Amendment today. We're going to ask Jose to play the Law and Order music. Open up your Law and Order notebooks, because I'm going to spend a little time with the Crumblies. And I always thought crumbly was something that was a word that you used to refer to certain kinds of cookies. When you pick them up, you're not really careful, they're kind of crumbly. Yeah. Well, it takes on a new meaning now. So I've got an article from Bearing Arms. I've got an article from my favorite, Jonathan Turley. And then there's a teachable moment at the end where we'll talk in terms of Guam law, minors, firearms, criminal law, liability, and related subjects. So if you're at all interested in those things, you're going to enjoy this first part of the show. We start out with an article that ran in Bearing Arms. Parents of accused shooter charged with involuntary manslaughter. The parents of the 15-year-old who killed 4 of his classmates and wounded several others with his father's recently purchased pistol are now facing charges of their own. Earlier today, Oakland County prosecutor Karen, who else? Karen McDonald announced that James and Jennifer Crumbly have been charged with involuntary manslaughter for, in essence, allowing their son access to a firearm when they should have been aware that he was a danger to himself or others. Now, obviously, the Crumbleys are not on the right side of things, meaning on the left, because if they were, their name wouldn't be mentioned in this article. The article would detail how a gun somehow shot 4 students. On November 29, a teacher saw somebody researching ammunition in class, the prosecutor said. The teens' parents were called and emailed, but they didn't respond to school officials. She said, however, according to the prosecutor, Jennifer Crumbly texted her son about the incident. Now, it's obviously her son who's in class researching ammunition, probably on his phone, right? After all, he is in class. What else is he going to do? And they catch him researching ammunition. They let his parents know, and his mother texts her son saying, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn not to get caught. No! Yeah. Parenting skills 101. According to McDonald, the morning of the shooting, the kid's teacher saw a note on his desk which alarmed her. McDonald said the note was a drawing of a semi-automatic handgun pointing at the words, the thoughts won't stop, help me. In another section of the note was a drawing of a bullet with the following words above the bullet, blood everywhere. Between the drawing of the gun and the bullet is a drawing of a person who appears to have been shot twice and bleeding. Below that figure is a drawing of a laughing emoji. Further down the drawing are the words, my life is useless. And to the right of that are the words, the world is dead. The boy was removed from the classroom and his parents were called to the school. By the time a counselor obtained the drawing, the teen had allegedly altered it. At the meeting, James and Jennifer Crumbly were shown the drawing and were advised that they were required to get their son into counseling within 48 hours. Both James and Jennifer failed to ask their son if he had his gun with him or where his gun was located, and failed to inspect his backpack for the presence of the gun, which he did have. The parents left school while the boy returned to class, likely with a gun in his backpack. Once news broke of a shooting at the school, the teacher said Jennifer Crumbly texted her son, don't do it. James Crumbly called 911 to report that a gun was missing from his house and said he believed his son may be the shooter. Authorities determined James Crumbly's semi-automatic handgun was stored unlocked in a drawer in his bedroom. So are these charges warranted? Over at Hot Air, my friend Ed Morrissey notes that this may be the first time that the parents of a shooter have been charged with manslaughter, but I'm aware of at least one other case where parents of a juvenile faced felony charges over her role. Parent of a juvenile faced felony charges over her role in her son's attack on a school. I think a case of criminal negligence could be made here, especially given that the suspect's mom texted her son and told him don't do it when she first learned of the shooting at Oxford High. Okay, so that lays out kind of the facts of the situation. And now I'm going to turn to Jonathan Turley for a little analysis here. The parents of Ethan Crumbley, 15, were arrested in Detroit after allegedly hiding out in a warehouse as police searched for them. Both Crumbleys face involuntary manslaughter charges. The police are suggesting that they were assisted in their alleged flight and may charge third parties. There was a $10,000 reward posted for their arrests. The question now is whether the involuntary manslaughter charges will survive challenges at the trial or appellate levels. The attorney for Crumbleys reportedly said they were not fleeing, though there will have to be some explanation why, if true, they were found in a warehouse near the Canadian border. Oakland County prosecutor Karen McDonald on Friday announced that each of the parents will face 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Each count could carry a 15-year sentence, though they would likely run concurrently if the parents are convicted and sentenced. If the reported facts are correct, there was ample evidence of negligence. First, the police alleged that the parents purchased the gun for their son. Under Michigan law, Ethan Crumbley was not allowed to own a gun until he was 18. Now, there's nothing in here about crossing state lines, by the way, Jose. Which is just as seriously as owning a gun, as serious as owning a gun when you're too young. Yet on the day of the purchase, on Black Friday, Jennifer Crumbley reportedly posted on social media writing, "Mom and son day testing out his new Christmas present." Ethan posted photos of the son on social media writing, "Just got my new beauty today." The police also say that the Crumbleys kept the gun in an unlocked drawer in their bedroom. On November 29th, and draw a string around that word, unlocked drawer. On November 29, the parents were called about Ethan researching ammunition on his phone. Jennifer sent him a text saying, "Lol, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn not to get caught." That can be dismissed as a kid obsessed with a new gun. However, what followed should have removed any doubt of a troubling context. Okay, and then the next part goes into the drawings that Ethan made and the text from Ethan's mother to Ethan saying, "Ethan, don't do it." A little while later, James Crumbley calling to report the stolen gun. Okay, that is all, if true, incredibly negligent, but does it amount to negligent homicide? Under the state provisions for manslaughter, the crime does not require malice aforethought. That's why it's called negligent homicide. Malice aforethought is an essential element of first-degree murder, that you thought about it and then you did it. Not that it was spontaneous, you lost your temper, etc. First-degree murder means you thought about it, you planned it out, maybe you laid in wait, etc. The state must prove that the Crumbleys caused the death of the deceased victim, that the deceased individual died as a result of their actions by 1, intending to kill the victim, 2, intending to do great bodily harm to the victim, or 3, creating a situation where the risk of great bodily harm or death was very high, knowing that as a result of the defendant's actions, he or she knew that serious harm or death would likely result. The prosecutors must show that the defendant caused the death of the victim without justification or lawful excuse. It is obviously the third option that is likely the basis for these charges. The third option being creating a situation where the risk of great bodily harm or death was very high, knowing that as a result of the defendant's actions, he or she knew that serious harm or death would likely result. Now, did the parents know that death would result when they did these things?
Because you can kind of make a case for the school as well. Or those who saw the actual texting and pictures and stuff.
But that wouldn't help the parents.
No, it wouldn't, but it would help with the understanding of if them, then why not these also, right?
Possible.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Armchair legalese here.
Yeah. Well, you are the producer for Tall Tales, so
I am very close to you.
yeah, that
Like
that
about
gives you
6 feet.
a certain cachet that others don't have.
I agree. I agree.
The charge seems a workaround of the fact that Michigan opted not to enact a child access prevention law. Once again, draw a line under that child access prevention law. The purchase of the gun could be explained as a promise that he would eventually receive the gun when he was 18, but that until then it would remain under their control. Children are allowed to use guns in the state under parental supervision. The key question is whether this level of negligence is sufficient to create a situation where the risk of great bodily harm or death was very high, knowing that as a result of the defendant's actions, he or she knew that serious harm or death would likely result. The fact that they left the gun in an unlocked drawer would not be enough. That's not enough. Unfortunately, that is all too common and is not a crime without a child access prevention law. This demands more than simply negligence, but a recklessness that led to conditions likely to cause such fatalities. So the Crumblies may not crumble when they get to trial.
So the negligence charge has nothing to do with whether or not their son is a minor. That's because there is no law.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
there could be an adult, but we'll get into that when we start talking about negligent entrustment. But the fact that he's not an adult works against them. They left a weapon where their son probably knew what it was. The prosecution will probably prove that the kid knew it was in that drawer, and the kid is a minor. So we start out with something that's not exactly a presumption, but pretty close to it, that kids are not as responsible as adults when it comes to dealing with dangerous instruments. The issue will come down to any prior knowledge of his instability and murderous fantasies. They obviously were made aware of those fantasies on November 30. Even if Jennifer sent that text after the news of the shootings, it's clear she immediately thought of her son. It is not clear if they had already discovered the gun was missing at that point. That fact will be key in any proceedings. The viability of these charges will depend on the police having additional information showing knowledge by the parents of the son's violent inclinations or potential. It is not clear how much information they were able to get from the parents or their son before these charges. We have seen in cases like Rittenhouse a rush to bring charges before all the facts were known by the prosecutor. It's not clear whether the prosecutors had a complete picture in this case. Now, of course, so far we can only assume the really key element in this whole thing because none of the reports mention it. And that is, it may be that the Crumblies may get off because as far as we know, none of the four were African Americans. If any one of the four were an African American, 15 years. Yeah. Right?
That's true.
Yeah. So that's Turley's breakdown on it. Now let's take a look at Guam law on this subject. And you got to go to Title 10, and you start out at about 60100 in Title 10. And you find things like this in the statute, that every firearms dealer has to post a sign in very conspicuous language in quarter-inch block letters that says this: it is unlawful and punishable by imprisonment and a fine for any adult to store or leave a firearm without placing it in a secure locked cabinet or closet or without a trigger lock in place. Now, if Michigan had had a statute like that, Makes the prosecution's burden much easier. And then we get down to 10 GCA 60121F. Any person, legal or natural. Now, you and I are natural persons. Choice Broadcasting, Inc. is a legal person, but it's not a natural person. Okay? Who transfers, gives, sells, loans any firearm to any minor is guilty of a felony which shall be punishable for a term of imprisonment of not less than 5 years and a fine of not less than $5,000. In the case of a violation by a legal person or persons performing the forbidden acts or omitting the required acts, and any responsible officer or knew or should have known of this act or omission committed shall be liable for punishment under this section. So if ABC Gun Sales, Inc. sells a firearm to a minor or lets the minor borrow it or whatever, the people, corporate officers who should have known are also liable for this 5 years in prison. Okay, there is a get around on that, but I'll come back to this later. Any person, and then at G, same section, any person who negligently entrusts a firearm to a minor is guilty of a felony which shall be punishable by a term of not less than 1 year and a fine of not less than $1,000. Now, this is what negligent entrustment means, Jose. Let's say we're talking cars instead of guns, and you have a neighbor. Doesn't matter how old doesn't matter how old your neighbor is, or what sex, or any of the rest of this stuff. If you know at the time that the neighbor asked to borrow the car that the neighbor is a dangerous driver, that the driver has been in several accidents that were brought about by either his or her recklessness or carelessness, and you let the neighbor take that car and the neighbor does something wrong, negligent entrustment, you too could be liable, which is not anywhere near as good as being a tailgater. And then at 714.2, strict liability. Every putative owner or lawful owner of a firearm is strictly liable in tort for the death or injury to the person resulting from the use or possession of a firearm by a minor. Now, this is what that sentence means. A putative owner is defined in the statute as somebody who, if it weren't for the statute that says that you have to have the firearms and all the rest of that stuff, person pays money for it and gets the gun even if the legal formalities aren't complied with, is a putative owner. And that putative owner is strictly liable in tort for the death or injury to any person resulting from the possession of that firearm by a minor. So I've talked about strict liability on the show before. Tort law recognizes at least three kinds of liability. There are intentional torts. If I walk up to some wise guy and punch him in the nose, that's the intentional tort of battery. If I'm swinging my staff at a piñata and I'm not really careful about what I'm doing and I hit that same guy in the nose with the stick that I'm using to hit the piñata and I'm negligent, I'm liable. That's negligence. And then there's strict liability where you don't have to show either intent or negligence. And the example I used the last time was a dynamite factory. If a dynamite factory explodes, the owners of the factory could put on a case in court that they complied with every single safety regulation and then some. They were a completely safe organization. There was no negligence at all, nothing intentional about the explosion, but the dynamite exploded. The dynamite factory owners are liable. That's strict liability. So in this section, if you are the owner of a firearm and that firearm falls into the hands of a minor who shoots somebody with it, you are liable even if you locked it, if you triple locked it and had an armed guard standing in front of it, doesn't matter. You are liable, strict liability. And then we have some presumptions. Here's another in section 1716.1. A person shall be entitled to recover damages in a civil action in an amount not to exceed $100,000 from the parents or guardians of any minor living with the parents or guardians who is responsible for the death or injury to a person caused by said minor's use of said firearms in his possession, who causes the death or injury of a person as a result of the use of the firearms. Probably strict liability also. The minor is out shooting at tin cans, and he doesn't notice that the little girl from across the street is playing in the sandbox behind the tin cans. See where this is going. The parents of the little girl could recover $100,000. We have presumptions in Guam law, and here are a couple of the presumptions. One, that a minor possessing or using a firearm does so with the knowledge of its lawful owner or putative owner. That's a presumption. That's where we start. Now, the owner could rebut that presumption, but if he doesn't, that's the finding. The next one, that a minor possessing or using a firearm does so with the knowledge of his parents or guardians. Another rebuttable presumption. So little Johnny sneaks into the house next door, steals the owner's firearm, goes out and uses it. Presumption is that his parents knew that he had that firearm. Now, they can rebut that presumption, but they have to. So the sum total of all of Guam law here dealing with firearms and minors is a terribly dangerous mix. Very, very dangerous. So if you own a gun and there's a minor in your house, I would suggest a lock cabinet, trigger lock it up tight, take every safety precaution that you probably can. Now, if you read Heller, District of Columbia versus Heller, the language in there suggests that the Constitution would prohibit statutes that require the immobilization of a gun because you can't use it for self-defense. I don't think that the D.C. versus Heller holding would reach to the civil law and the negligent entrustment, the presumptions, and the other provisions that deal with minors and firearms. I suspect that wouldn't work very well. And of course, if you're in this really unfortunate situation like the Crumbleys, even if you got a good constitutional argument, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg to perfect that constitutional argument because you're not going to get a favorable ruling at the trial court. So you're going to have to go on appeal with it somewhere. So from an abundance of caution, if you own a firearm, don't let kids come anywhere near that firearm. Now, I said that there is kind of an escape out of this, and it unfortunately is not very well drafted and probably doesn't offer much comfort. Let's see, it's okay, this is at 10 GCA 60121F2. This section does not apply when a minor is being instructed by his parent or guardian in the use of weapons or when that minor, properly licensed, is hunting with his parent or guardian, who is also properly licensed and complying with the previous Government of Guam Department of Agriculture hunting regulations, section 15.300 through 15.300.29. So, you know, you can take your kid out with a weapon, and you can instruct him in the use, or you can take him hunting. But boy, I don't know. Even then, there's a danger, because the law is really stacked against parents who own guns that have minors in the household. So, as we say in legalese, videlicet sapiente, vid sap, a word to the wise is sufficient. So much for the Second Amendment. Okay, let's take a break.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Afre, my name is Kiona Rivera, student at the University of Guam and recent recipient of the G is for Giving Scholarship. This holiday season, I'm encouraging our island community to support the G is for Giving campaign. Your generous contribution not only support programs at the university, but also helps students like me reach our academic goals. For more information on how you can help shape the future leaders of our island, call the UOG Endowment Foundation at 671-735-2957 or visit their website at give.uog.edu.
Portions of the program brought to you by Nissan. Choose your favorite Nissan, and there's an abundance of Nissan automobiles to choose from. Rogues, Rogue Sports, Muranos, Kicks, Sentras, Leafs, Rogues, and then start talking about the deal they want to put together for you. Enjoy 0% APR, or your first 3 payments are on them. Just sign and drive away. Inventory limited, so don't wait. See Nissan Guam first. Wait, there's the fine print. I got to read the thing in fine print ease. On approved credit, 3 payments calculated, 5% APR at 60 months term, and based on the actual selling price of the vehicle only, not including down payment or any aftermarket products or accessories. See Nissan Guam for full details.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, I have the Daily News editorial in front of me here, and I'm going to make my comment on the editorial before I even start reading the editorial. And it comes from a famous accounting partnership, Scrooge and Marley. Perhaps you've heard of them.
I'm anticipating.
Yeah. Ebenezer Scrooge perhaps came up with one of the best phrases that describes some of this fake manufactured holiday cheer. Scrooge, when pressed, would say, "Christmas, bah, humbug." A couple of the greatest lines in English literature. So here's the Daily News. As Bing Crosby put it, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Should you say the other Bing Crosby lyrics?
Last week, Hotel Nico Guam and the Office of Governor turned on decorative light displays for Christmas. This year feels like we will get a hint of normal Christmas celebrations. We're shopping, seeing family and friends, and breaking out the ladders and extension cords to decorate. We're more likely to use lights and ornaments than ladders and extension cords to decorate our Christmas tree. How about you, Jose?
Absolutely.
Hey, that's a beautiful Christmas tree, man. Where'd you get those extension cords? They're really nice. It's a sharp difference from last year as the pandemic surged. We don't need to fake it this time around, but we will anyhow. We're in awe of the light shows. We hear the Christmas music. We watch the children run and dance as the colorful lights entertain them. It's all so beautiful and refreshing. We don't want to lose these moments that we've worked so hard to have again. The threat of the Omicron variant has the possibility of dampening our hopes for a semi-normal holiday season. Constant developments on the variant could have us lose hope. All the efforts we've made to contain the spread and prevent hospitalizations and deaths on the island. If the variants don't do it, our governor will step in to fill the void. Though there is still ongoing research into the Omicron variant, we shouldn't dwell too much on what ifs of this variant. It can't take over our holiday spirit like Wuhan virus did last year. We've grown a trust within our community to keep each other safe, and we should continue to carry that trust forward as we make it through our holidays. We see the Christmas lights and other decorations as a form of beauty and creativity, but we should also see them as glimmers of hope. It's understandable that the Omicron variant instills fears and concerns. However, we've come a long way with our vaccinations, boosters, and other precautions like roadblocks. We're familiar with having to respect each other's health concerns by wearing masks, offering hand sanitizers, and social distancing. I don't know who this we is. We're smarter. We know the basics to keep each other safe for the holidays. This year, despite the ongoing uncertainties that we face, we see beyond the lights, and we see what we missed last year. We see normalcy, joy, wonder, and happiness. If no other reason, normalcy is enough to keep you from getting the blue star. But they omitted the key word from this editorial, schmaltz.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Can we please stop with this false narrative of the fear of the Omicron variant? Like, we haven't even heard of any kind of adverse reaction to the variant. All we hear about is that it's here.
Well, and if you read carefully or read voluminously, you'll find that a lot of folks are saying it's easier to catch, but not anywhere as detrimental to the one who gets it.
Like the flu.
Yeah.
But see, they keep repeating this thing of it instills fears and concern. No, you are the ones that are doing it, not the variant.
Yeah, you got to even use Christmas as a prop.
Exactly.
Yeah, no blue star for you guys. I'm not going to crumple it up and throw it away like I did a couple days ago, but it's close. Okay, I've got a couple offerings here from the Post, one from the Post editors and the other from Lee Weber. Guess which one is the better of the two? Yeah. I completely disagree with the Post. The Post says it's encouraging to see federal bailout money flowing to the villages. Encouraging for who? With billions of congressional pandemic aid dollars at her disposal or within her discretion, it absolutely was reasonable for Governor Lujan Guerrero to make $17 million available to the Mayor's Council. Last week, Delegate Michael San Nicolas pressed for the governors to direct money from the American Rescue Plan to the Mayor's Council, arguing Congress intended to give financial support to the counties and non-entitlement units in the country. Non-entitlement units are local governments that typically serve fewer than 50,000 people, such as villages, towns, or townships, according to guidance from the U.S. Department of Treasury. Unlike the 50 states, Guam's government isn't broken down into administrative level like counties that have elected legislative bodies and executive managers. Well, sometimes they have executive managers, sometimes they don't. A county is a county, right? The typical county government has a county board that has both executive and legislative functions. And then we have villages and cities that have city councils, village boards, etc. But as I mentioned on the show Friday, these units of government are municipal corporations. They are legal persons like corporations. In fact, they're called municipal corporations. And the civil attorney, the criminal attorney for a county, at least in Wisconsin, is called the district attorney. In Illinois, that person is called the state's attorney. In Wisconsin, the civil attorney for a county is called corporation counsel. So corporations have a legal existence. There's a body of law that governs corporations. They have perpetual existence. We don't have anything nearly close to that. We have mayors who kind of, the duties of which are whatever they think they should be doing. I have a very dim view of mayors and the mayor's council. The mayor's council has distinguished itself by its executive director coming out and asking for mercy for a convicted mayor, the mayor of Jonia, but in his personal capacity, right? Just forget that he's the executive director of the mayor's council. The mayor's council gave him a gigantic raise with, as far as I could tell, no authority to do so whatsoever. And the mayors kind of do whatever they feel like doing or whatever they don't feel like doing. Now, I might take a different view of mayors if I had ever had a good one. But since I've been living in Jigo for, it'll be 46 years this month, we've never had a good mayor in Jigo. The mayor before this one, Rudy Montanani, the ink was hardly dry on his certificate of election, and he took off on a junket to the Philippines for a week. And because he was so important, the council approved that he be staffed. In other words, someone from the mayor's council would go with him as his staff. His staff was Angel Sablons. You know, so I voted for him. I campaigned for him. But, you know, it actually, in a sense, I felt it blew back on me. What the? Klitzkie's backing this guy, this junketeer? And that was about the most notable thing that he did during his entire term in office. He never really accomplished anything. The current mayor was the deputy mayor during his regime, so I suppose he learned everything he knows from the... So I do not have a good view of the mayors at all. And as between the two, I'd rather see the governor spend the money than the mayors, because there's no check and balance on the mayors at all. There's no legislature looking after the mayors, except the legislature downtown. It's just a recipe for misuse of $17 million, as far as I'm concerned. So no, Post, you missed the boat on this one. Okay, next we have Lee Weber. And Lee Weber's column is entitled, "Too Many Handouts, Not Enough Public Service." And you remember, once again, I have a bias. What I want to see from our government is an effective, efficient government operating within the rule of law, furnishing at least the basic government services on at least a break-even basis. That's what I'm looking for. Here's what Weber said. Lately, I've been writing about what Guam was like in the late 60s, 70s, and early 80s, a time that was generally simpler, and the government of Guam was much more rural in nature, far less complicated, and you could actually get things done relatively easily. The entire government was smaller, less complicated, and much easier to navigate than it is today. Additionally, people were not nearly as dependent upon government handouts as they seem to be today. Quite a number of years ago, I recall going to the Department of Public Health and Social Services and tallying up the benefits that could be collected by any resident who was unemployed and had a small family. These included housing, food stamps, public health services, etc. We then had a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I mentioned that if you added up all those benefits, it totaled just under $45,000 per annum. That was $45,000 without a lick of work or real productivity being offered or given in return for this free money. The then Director of Public Health and Social Services took offense to my addition and questioned how I arrived at that total. My answer was simple. I received it from his office in Manila. From my standpoint, that was the beginning of the public dependence that we see far too much of today. A public dependence that is tearing at the very fabric of our island and the entire nation as well. It is a set of circumstances in which you have a politically elite sector of the economy who have made getting elected to and staying in office a lifestyle. Okay, I want to take a short break here, and we'll come back to that sentence right after the break.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
All right, so here we are, about 9 more minutes to the big halftime show. So I'm reading Lee Weber's column, and I left off from here. From my standpoint, it was the beginning of public dependence that we see far too much of today. A public dependence that is tearing at the very fabric of our island and the entire nation as well. It is a set of circumstances in which you have a political elite sector of the community who have made getting elected to and staying in office a lifestyle, as opposed to it being a short term of public service. This is exactly right, and that's why I keep pounding the table for a part-time legislature. As long as we have that political class, 200 or 300 people who filter around from one government position to another, executive, legislative, etc., things are never going to change. You can bet on that. Change for the better. Weber goes on to say, all communities, particularly smaller ones, no matter their location on Earth, have always had unique leadership challenges. Challenges that have historically revolved around the accrual of political power and money in the hands of a privileged few. A few who do not get elected because of their desire for public service, but rather due to their personality, family ties, and propensity, much like morning coffee, bacon frying, and women's eye, the willingness to promise far more than they could ever deliver. If you can't do that, maybe you won't get elected. Nationally and locally, we have seen entire families fall into this category and with few exceptions use government position to acquire or increase their individual wealth and power. The so-called legacy candidates. Something else that was brought to mind was why not ask all of the people who are getting free money from the government to do some sort of work for the community in return for those payments. This could be similar to President Roosevelt's Work Progress Administration in 1937, during the time that 8.5 million people built bridges, public buildings, public parks, and airports. Only today on Guam it could be called the LLG PFW, Lou Leon Guerrero Pay for Work program. These folks could be used to spruce up and clean public buildings, clear scenic overlooks, do road repair work, clean public parks and bathrooms, empty trash around the island, and other duties. And there's a lot of room for that. You know, once again, Marine Corps Drive between Dedido and Jigo has turned into let's restore the forest project. You know, there are weeds growing alongside of the road that are taller than I am. It was just cleaned out about 4 months ago. There's apparently no thought given to the fact that when you chop the weeds down, it won't last forever. You're going to have to do it again. So we keep talking about beautifying the island for tourists, and we let our roads look like junk heaps. There are 2 new junk cars on that section of road just since I've been back from my trip to the States. Weber goes on to say, in this way, those taking advantage of public money to survive would be giving back to the community that supplied them with the same money. We would have a cleaner, safer, prettier Guam. After all, Hamzu, and that's part of Lou's program, in investment para Hamzu includes mayors, their offices, and village residents. Hamzu is everybody. Hamzu would translate, in Alabama, Hamzu would translate into y'all. Yeah, and I mentioned my own scheme along the same lines, my day work approach to putting some money in people's pockets after the federal money stops coming in. And you'll recall my idea was that ads would run in the paper advising people to show up at, say, 4 different locations with their documents in hand at 7 o'clock and 7:30 in the morning, documents in hands and a pair of gloves. We'll take them out, and there will be machete and fusinos type work for 8 hours. You go out, you chop weeds, you dig holes, you do whatever needs to be done, and at the end of the day, you'll leave either with a check or a bundle of cash in your hand every single day.
Kind of like the Peace Corps. Kind of like there was something else that was similar to the Peace Corps. What's going on today? I can't think of the name of it. AmeriCorps?
Could be.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But this happened around the time that I was just beginning to stop paying attention just to myself and to politics. But didn't the 90s have something similar with welfare reformation?
It was tried, workfare. Yeah, it was something that Clinton put in place. The problem with these things is that you need a huge bureaucracy to funnel the people into jobs. And it tends to be counterproductive. So my idea is, no bureaucracy at all. You show up, you work for 8 hours, and you're going to get 8 times the minimum wage at the end of the day. This type of employment is available in almost all big cities in the USA. And it's almost all people of, many of these people are not in the country legally. We're not supposed to use the word alien anymore, but if we could use the word alien, many of these are illegal aliens. So they'll show up at a particular corner, and everybody knows where that corner is. So you drive by there at 7 o'clock in the morning and you want to hire 3 guys to go out and chop down your boonies or do a bush cutter or whatever. You grab them and you take them and you pay them at the end of the day.
I saw that in California with the day workers.
That's what they are. So my idea would be a government day worker program. All right, so good editorial, Lee. Now, that reminded me of something that's been around for a long time that I've actually brought forward in Tall Tales before, but this would be a good time to do it again. This is something from a guy named Alexander Fraser Tytler, a Scotsman. He's a couple of 100 years old. And this is what Mr. Tytler says. A democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It can only exist until the voters discover that they can vote themselves largesse from the public treasury. From that moment on, the majority always votes for the candidates promising the most benefits from the public treasury, with the result that a democracy always collapses over loose fiscal policy, always followed by a dictatorship. Is that relevant today?
Sounds like an Obama phone.
The average age of the world's greatest civilizations has been 200 years. These nations have progressed through this sequence: from bondage to spiritual faith, from spiritual faith to great courage, from courage to liberty, from liberty to abundance, from abundance to selfishness, from selfishness to apathy, from apathy to dependence, from dependence back into bondage. And that's exactly where we're going right now. No question about it. I'm going to give you some stock market advice based on what we've been talking about here right after the big halftime show. So if you want to know which stocks where to put your money in the stock market, stay tuned.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Accolades for a Senate giant. I'm Paul Stevens, Fox News. Words of praise and remembrance from all corners of the political world for former Republican Senator and presidential candidate Bob Dole, who died Sunday at 98.
President Biden and the First Lady, Dr. Joe Biden, personally spoke to Senator Elizabeth Dole to express their condolences. Joe Biden and Bob Dole had a relationship that lasted almost half a century. They first began working together in the United States Senate when then the young senator from Delaware, Joe Biden, took the oath of office in 1973. The two got along early. They didn't agree much politically, but they always respected each other and shared a few laughs together. President Biden out with a statement, quote, "I will miss my friend, but I am grateful for the times we shared and for the friendship Jill and I and our family have built with Liddy and the entire Dole family."
Fox's David Spunt. Bob Dole is also considered a war hero, overcoming life-threatening injuries during World War II. The Omicron COVID-19 variant is being found in an increasing number of states, with health officials assessing its potential to spread even further.
For now, the Delta variant is still the dominant COVID strain in the U.S., but CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky on ABC's This Week said the more complex structure of Omicron is a real concern.
The more mutations a single variant has, the more immunity you really need to have in order to combat that variant, which is why right now we're really pushing to get more people vaccinated and more people boosted.
More than a dozen states have at least one confirmed Omicron case. There are reports of staff shortages at some drugstores where people go to get vaccinated. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Testimony resumes Monday in the trial of actor Jussie Smollett, who's accused of staging a phony racist, homophobic attack in Chicago back in 2019. Two brothers testified last week that Smollett paid them to take part in the alleged scheme. America is listening to Fox News.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite My Christmas loan with an annual percentage interest rate as low as 3.99% and up to $50,000. And with the new Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you can have the flexibility of using your money when you want to, where you want to. My Christmas Loan contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas merrier this year. Equal opportunity lender. Credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
California's rash of smash-and-grab robberies has taken another twist.
We're used to hearing about mobs of thieves in California looting and stealing from high-end stores now, but apparently they're also targeting Bay Area cannabis dispensaries. Police say more than 175 shots have been fired during these cannabis robberies. Here's the owner of the Oakland Blunt store reacting to all the violence.
I was safer selling weed on the streets of Oakland than I am selling it legally, and that's a problem. That's crazy to even say, but that's just the reality I'm living in right now.
In Southern California, critics of LA County's justice system, who say it's too soft on crime, are still reeling over the fact that 14 suspects arrested in connection to 11 smash-and-grab robberies that happened around the Thanksgiving time are already back on the streets. They didn't spend a single day in jail because of LA County's zero-bail policy for certain crimes, including burglary.
Fox's Christina Coleman. A Florida man is accused of killing a co-worker who refused to date him.
A Miami Beach man whose repeated romantic advances to a restaurant co-worker were rejected killed her outside her apartment. According to reports in the Miami Herald, 20-year-old Augustin Mariani faces second-degree murder charges for the fatal stabbing of Delfina Pan, a 28-year-old from Argentina. Police say a neighbor and friend of Pan said that on Monday night, Mariani arrived at Pan's apartment uninvited and waited for her. When Pan came home, Mariani is accused of asking to speak to her inside her apartment, but she refused, prompting an enraged Mariani to kill her, police say. Sal Gianbrasso, Fox News.
Virginia Governor Ralph Northam announcing that his administration will remove an enormous pedestal that, until earlier this year, held a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee in Richmond. The announcement marking a reversal in course from September when that statue was removed, but Northam said the 40-foot-tall graffiti-covered pedestal would stay. I'm Paul Stevens, and this is Fox News.
The holidays are here and you know what that means. Time to gather with family and friends, dress up our homes, and explore Christmas season in paradise. Why not share these moments for a chance to win $100 in cash? Log on to visitguam.com/Instagram today to participate in the Guam Visitors Bureau #Instagram photo and video contest. A winner will be chosen every week, so share your best holiday moments now and win. Brought to you by GVB, making Guam a better place to live, work, and visit.
As we celebrate this holiday season, we reflect on the hardships of the past 2 years and remain grateful for the family and friends who share our journey and lighten our burdens. The team at Security Title is proud of the work we do to support ourselves and our families, to serve and care for our customers, and to give back to our community. May this season of joy and the new year bring happiness, good health, and prosperity to you and yours. Merry Christmas from all of us at Security Title.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck. Zero down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at GuamAutospot.com.
So here we are back again after that big halftime show. That's a great way to start off any week. We were talking about inflation before the break, the government's proclivity to give away money for nothing. So ex gratia payments. Lee Weber bemoaned it in his column. I read an old piece by a guy named Alexander Teitler, who said that a democracy can only last about 200 years because sooner or later the people figure out that they can vote themselves money out of the public treasury and the country starts to deteriorate pretty fast. That's where we are now. You know, we're more than $30 trillion in the hole. And our current president wants to spend more. He wants to, you know, build back better and all this other silliness when we just plain don't have the money. So our national government has the ability to print money and kind of write itself an IOU in the process. People talk in terms of the government printing money. Well, most money isn't printed anymore. It exists as ones and zeros in somebody's computer somewhere. But the way the United States government does it, we don't do budgets anymore. We just extend the debt ceiling from time to time. And it just allows the government to continue to allow money to circulate without any real substance behind it. It's called fiat currency. Fiat meaning believe. So you have to believe that the money has value. And it works right up in the time that people think that it doesn't have value, and then it has no value whatsoever. This happened in Germany and during the early 1920s, during the Weimar Republic, when the money became so worthless that you needed $1 billion, as you were 1 billion Deutschmarks, to buy a slice of bread. So here are my stock market tips. My stock market tips: buy stocks in companies that make wheelbarrows. Buy on the margin. Load up on the stocks on companies that manufacture wheelbarrows, and sell short any company that manufactures paper products, especially toilet paper. And here's the reason. The reason is that at the rate we're going, we have inflation now. We're on the cusp of runaway inflation, sort of like the Weimar Republic, where you're going to need a wheelbarrow full of currency to wheel down to the 7-Eleven and buy a pack of cigarettes. So there'll be a great demand for wheelbarrows. People won't need wallets anymore. Tello can junk her purse. She won't need her purse. She'll just need a very fancy wheelbarrow to wheel all this currency around. On the other hand, no one is going to have to buy toilet paper anymore because they'll have this huge pile of currency in their house that they won't have to pay for. They'll just get it as part of the transactions that they enter into.
But it's one ply.
Yeah, it's only one ply. But sell short companies that manufacture toilet paper and buy on the margin companies that manufacture wheelbarrows. That's my stock market tips for the day. I'm going to find out what my caller wants to say and probably whether he'll want to repeat what he says. Go ahead, repeat.
Hey, Uncle Bob. You know, I always wanted to be like Boss Hogg and light my cigars with $100 bills.
All right.
No, you know, I was listening to you reading Lee Weber's article and talking about politicians who have a political family name and who promise everything. Well, you know, it brought to mind the Pica's favorite or best senator that just got voted, Moylan.
Sure.
You know, he's always pushing to give away free money, you know, creating dependency. I don't know what kind of Republican he is, but that just doesn't seem to fit the playbook in my estimation. What do you think?
Well, I think he tests positive for the rhinovirus from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, that and also the I don't understand how government works virus.
Oh, government what?
When he introduces all these, how government works, when he introduces all these bills that are useless or, you know, nonsensical.
Well, he really got my attention in the last legislature when he introduced that hate crime bill. like he was trying to pass as a Democrat or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It just struck me when you were reading all that. I was like, hey, that's exactly what, and it's true because he was voted the most popular senator by the people's choice.
Yeah.
So what Lee Weber's comments are about, who can get elected are these people that want to have political family name recognition and who like to promise a lot of freebies. That's pandering 101, and there's no question why he got voted number one, because that's what he is. He's the panderer in chief.
Well, every once in a while, strange things happen because somebody with a really strange tomorrow night comes along and says crazy things like, what I'm after is an effective, efficient government operating within the rule of law that renders basic government services on a break-even basis. Sometimes people like that can get elected, but it's the exception, certainly not the rule.
All right, I just want to throw my observation out there.
Good observation, Pete. I'm waiting. I think that we are not served well by this concept of legacy policy. Let's vote, politics. Let's vote for him because his grandfather was a Washington rep, or let's vote for her because her father was a governor or senator or whatever. It's almost like public office on Guam is hereditary, and I don't think we're well served by that. I want to see Joe Sixpack and Herman Everyman elected to office, because I think the connection with the grassroots is much stronger, and the feeling for the actual people is much greater amongst those than amongst the legacy politicians, Pete.
Yeah, if we do go to a part-time legislature, I might consider running, but with the circus now, I don't think I want to join the circus that's been in existence.
Exactly, and I think a lot of other people feel the same way. People that have pretty good reputations wouldn't want to spoil it by being a member of that group.
I mean, I don't take away from those who stick their neck out there, and because that is something I'm not willing to do in the current paradigm. But if it were to be a part-time legislature, and I will be able to continue to do what I like to do and what I feel is meaningful, and then also add to that the service of legislating, I think I might consider. But for now, there's just no way, until it snows in Hawaii. Oh, wait a minute, it did. Yeah, but yeah. There would have to be a paradigm shift before I would consider.
Well, this is just one more arrow in my quiver then, Repeat, because I have several good arguments as to why we should have a part-time legislature. I can now add to that if we had a part-time legislature, Peter Santos might very well run for office. And this may be what puts it over the top.
You do have a very good second-term slogan.
Repeat. All right. Thanks, Uncle Bob.
All right, Pete. Okay, we got another Joe who wants to talk about politics, and we've got our Carl that wants to talk about politics. Tell me about politics, another Joe.
Well, I was going to say, Bob, they missed your. They should have. They didn't do the drum. After your that sounded like your mantra. You're the break-even guy.
Mm-hmm.
The government and Devs. They're more recently. They're not really impressed with being exceptional, right? It's just. I'm not sure if they're still in favor of giving out trophies for participating. It's not that it's a bad thing, but it's good to have exceptional people too.
Exactly.
So anyway, I think there should be as many people as possible running and show what they have to offer for the people. I'm leaning towards the Republican Party because they're supposed to be pro-life. That's part of the political platform. Although I do not see the Republican Party
pro-life.
Pro-life.
What does that mean? What do you mean pro?
They are anti-abortion.
Okay. Yeah, we don't use weasel words on Tall Tales. We call them as they are. Go ahead, another Joe.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I haven't seen the Republican Party coming out very often saying, "Hey, we are anti-abortion." And right now, you got literally the entire nation, right, waiting and observing. We're gonna have to wait a few more months for the Supreme Court decision. And the impression I've been getting is really, Bob, this overturning Roe versus Wade does not stop abortion. It simply puts it in the appropriate, the so-called.
It's a federalism matter. You know, the decision as to how to regulate conduct is always rested with the states. The criminal law is always rested with the states. So if you were to analyze the Constitution, you go through Article 1, Section 8, the powers of Congress, there's nothing in there that even comes close to regulating, abortion or legalizing abortion. And if you look at the Bill of Rights, we know the Bill of Rights deals with negative rights. So it took some real judicial acrobatics to find a positive right to abortion in the Constitution. And it's just wrong. It was dead wrong when it was decided because there's no law to support it. It's dead wrong on a natural law basis because, if you were to use the categorical imperative so that those who favor abortions would want every single pregnancy to end in an abortion, the human race would come to an end. Not to mention that it's terribly cruel and mean and unchristian. So there's no good reason for it other than it accommodates the convenience. Wait a minute. I do have a reason for it. I hope I can still. I have to take that back. There is a reason to favor abortion, and it comes from none other than attorney Vanessa Williams, who said, "It is impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives." So it's just another decision. Should I join the bridge club? Should I go on vacation this summer? Is it time to trade in the car? Should I have a child or shall I have an abortion? It's all the same thing according. And this, unfortunately, is too typical of the pro-aborts in our community, another Joe.
So is it fair to say, Bob, that this is really a states' rights issue?
Except we don't use the term states' rights on Call Tales because states don't have rights.
Okay. People
have rights. States don't have rights. States have powers. And in the beginning, states had all the powers. When the Revolutionary War was over, United Kingdom, England, signed 13 separate peace treaties with 13 independent states. And those states decided that they would pull together and form a confederation and then later on establish what amounted to a national government. They all were sovereigns. They delegated some of their sovereignty to that central government and maintained the rest. And the part that they maintained was dealing with regulation of behavior, criminal law, etc. It's called the police powers. And they didn't delegate any of that to the national government. So this, as a matter of law, this whole abortion thing is just a house of cards. You pull one card out and it all just falls apart quickly.
Very educational, Kebab. I'm gonna let the other callers have their opportunity to gain your wisdom, Kebab. Thanks for your time.
You mean you're going to deny them the opportunity of listening to you talk about compact impact and other?
Okay, Kebab. Thanks for your time.
Some of our callers are going to be crushed. Okay, who we got? Here he is. Another Joe picked a good time to yield the line, huh? The most dangerous man in the room. Good afternoon, Carl.
Hey, good afternoon, Bob. Yeah, I wish I had the quote in front of me, but when you were talking about Senator Moylan and rhinos in general, I remembered a quote by our friend Thomas Sowell, our favorite economist and social philosopher, David Mamet or Mamet. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. He was a playwright, and he was a leftist for many years, a liberal. And he was red-pilled by reading the writings of Thomas Sowell, in addition to a few others. But he really credited Thomas Sowell a great deal with red-pilling him, flipping him his political views. And he called Thomas Sowell the most important political philosopher alive today.
I'd agree.
So,
yeah,
and he's managed to red-pill a lot of people. So, an amazing person. But one thing that he said that was called to mind is that Thomas Sowell said is that, and I don't have the exact words, but I've got the basic thought that the most dangerous people for America after leftist Democrats are country club Republicans. Yeah, I wish I had the exact quote because it was a lot better than that.
Mm-hmm.
But he really, I think he was dead on. He saw that it's not just a matter of Republicans coming to power in the White House and Congress, and because power corrupts, or power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and it doesn't matter if it's Republicans or Democrats. I'm biased, so I think Republicans are slightly better, but I do not trust Republicans or Democrats with a one-party rule. I think that would be disastrous, and that's what the Democrat leadership is after. And I have to say that you and Ken Leon Guerrero educated me on voting for how powerful it is to vote for less people. I used to vote straight line Republican, all 15, and then I saw Ken's articles and your writings and comments about the 1 Pat 10 pay raise smash and grab, and I saw how many Republicans were on board that and refused to give back the money. And Ken published his list. I took that list into the voting booth. I did not vote for any of them. And after that, I started downsizing my vote. 5 Republicans, incumbents. Last election, I didn't vote for a single incumbent. No one I voted for won, but I have no regrets.
Yeah, well, it's good, Carl. That it's called bullet voting. Your strongest vote is the first one you cast, and every one that you vote after that first one takes away from the first one. Weakens exactly. The first one, yeah.
Yeah, and there's been a few people who have, suggested that I should run. At my age, I finally figured out, what is it? Dirty Harry said, a man's got to know his limitations. And I figured out that no, that's not. You don't need a good talker. You need someone like you, who you can look back at their record. They've been a Marine, they've been a teacher, they've been a lawyer, they've been a judge. They've done a lot of things. They've accomplished a lot. And I think that's why you were able to run a very low-cost campaign, is because over the decades you built up so much political capital in the community. You had wheelbarrows full of political capital to spend. You could still be in office if you wanted to. I'd still be voting for you, but you kept your promise. You said 2 terms, and I'm out of here, and that's exactly what you did. So credit goes to you. Anyway, Bob, that's my thoughts for the day, and thanks.
Are you done, Carl?
I am done.
Darn, I could sit around listening to stories like this all afternoon.
Well, we need people who can do things, who have a record, I think, and I think you were dead on when you told people if they're waiting until it's campaign time to start running ads and getting involved in the community, it's too late. It's done. You were involved in the community for a long, long, long time, and people realize that. They might not agree with you. Some of them might not even like you, but they have to give you some begrudging respect, Plus you have really good, you speak good Chamorro, so there you go.
Utunguti finu tomorrow usa kada dia lo dispensa jos appling tomorrow lo maleknya ke taja ne.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Okay, Carl. Good talking to you as usual.
All right, Bob. It's always good talking with you.
All right, let's head for Wrigley Field.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
The holidays are here, and you know what that means. Time to gather with family and friends, dress up our homes, and explore Christmas season in paradise. Why not share these moments for a chance to win $100 in cash? Log on to visit guam.com/Instagram today to participate in the Guam Visitors Bureau #Instagram photo and video contest. A winner will be chosen every week, so share your best holiday moments now and win. Brought to you by GVB, making Guam a better place to live, work, and visit.
Portions of the program brought to you by Nissan. Choose your favorite Nissan, and there's an abundance of Nissan automobiles to choose from. Rogues, Rogue Sports, Muranos, Kicks, Sentras, Leafs, Rogues, and then start talking about the deal they want to put together for you. Enjoy 0% APR, or your first 3 payments are on them. Just sign and drive away. Inventory limited, so don't wait. See Nissan Guam first. Wait, there's the fine print. I got to read the thing in fine print ease. On approved credit, 3 payments calculated, 5% APR, 60 months term, and based on the actual selling price of the vehicle only, not including down payment or any aftermarket products or accessories. See Nissan Guam for full details.
Okay, Wrigley Field in Chicago. Not much of a day for baseball, but a great day for Wrigley Field, the world's most beautiful ballpark. So we got about 2 more innings left in today's Tall Tales. It's our favorite day of the week. Jose and I really love Monday because we got a whole week of Tall Tales ahead of us. Friday, not so much. Let's pick up the next item on the card. Guam Land Use, Guam Ancestral Lands Commission versus CLTC applicants, which means applicants for the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. And there's some really, applicants for Chamorro Land Trust leases. Those people who went down in 1995 and stood in line and signed up, etc., you're SOL, you're out of luck. And I'm going to explain why. There's a story in the Post about years of neglect at the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission. Termite-eaten files being digitized.
Convenient.
I wonder how you digitize a termite. And there's a picture there of some papers that have been eaten by termites. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, this is what it looks like. That big black space there is a hole in the paper. Some of the documents were nearly destroyed with fist-sized holes having been carved out of them. Others were salvageable but still significantly damaged by termites. This is the condition of some of the land claims files the Ancestral Lands Commission is hoping to preserve through digitization. Some are replaceable, some are not, said GALC Executive Director John Birch. I wonder if he has a society. I'll bet that guy is as conservative as a day is long, huh? John Birch.
If your name is Birch, you're probably raising termites.
Yeah. Probate records can be retrieved from the courts, but other records like communications records between the client and their attorneys may not be easily recovered. Ancestral Lands, that's the agency, had been severely neglected for years, according to Birch. The files the commission has now are termite-eaten and deteriorating. The agency provided photographs of a few termite-damaged John Bond files discovered during review. John Bond refers to the attorney who represented Guam land claimants in a class action lawsuit in the 1980s. The federal government ultimately offered $39.5 million to settle the claims. Not only offered, but paid. I'm going to stop here and explain this again. You know, I've mentioned this for, you know, for the Proteji Latexan folks whose land was taken by eminent domain in the early 1960s, and they still can't get over it. But for most of the land that was condemned here in Guam, the United States government has paid for it twice and then given much of it back to the pre-condemnation owners. When the land was first condemned, the way condemnation works, the United States has to make a deposit of estimated compensation with the court before it files its papers. It then files a declaration of taking, and the land is the United States. The only question left to decide is how much is the land worth? And if the land is worth more than the estimated compensation, the United States writes a check. It's a jury trial, and some people have done pretty well on these condemnation claims. So that was the first time the land was paid for. The second time was during the time of Mr. Wampat back about 1977-78, when he got a bill through Congress that didn't require people whose land was taken by eminent domain to show that they had been treated unfairly, merely that they could have been treated better. So when it was all unpacked, what it amounted to, it was a giveaway money statute. So John Bond, who'd been in and out of legal services circles on Guam since 1950, if you find the first edition of the Government Code of Guam, you'll find out that John Bond was the compiler. Anyhow, he represented a group of people here on the island who started a class action against the government, and the United States government settled for $39.5 million, which was again passed out to the owners of the land that had been, as you were, to the pre-condemnation owners or their heirs. So some of those files are still around. These files are necessary. Whenever anybody has, or a title company has, any issues with any titles that have been given or are being contested, they come to us and ask for our files, Bert said. There are 32 four-drawer file cabinets filled with the John Bond title hearing files at GALC. One day is set aside each week to work on the John Bond files, and GALC so far has digitized less than 0.5% of them. I think the termites can eat a whole lot faster than that. The agency has not been able to work on the title hearing files. GALC has also has recordings stored on old cassette tapes that the agency is working on to digitize as they are becoming brittle. We're slowly trying to digitize everything, where if someone wants to access these documents, hopefully we'll be able to put them on our website on some sort of shared file where people can come in and get copies, etc. Ancestral Lands was pretty much sometimes understaffed with only one person. In addition to the lone land agent, GALC currently has just Birch and a special projects coordinator as its employees. The land agent is up to retire next year, and he plans to retire. To provide additional fund to GALC, Senator Tello Taitigui has introduced Bill 225, which transfers about $90,000 from the defunct Hagatnia Fractional Lot Fund to Guam Ancestral Lands Commission. If you ever wanted to know what the Hagatnia Fractional Lot Fund was, I can explain that too, but I won't do it now. The bill is sponsored by 5 other lawmakers. For years, Ancestral Lands has struggled with administering federal lands that have been returned to the government of Guam as required by Guam law, Taitigui stated in a release. The John Bond land records are vital in the abstraction of information to know the owners of returned excess federal properties. The agency is supposed to be maintaining ancestral land registries and processing ancestral land claims. This continues to be an ongoing challenge for 2 decades due to staff shortage. Burt said there is a concern of possibly losing historical knowledge at the agency. If the land agent retires and Birch and the special projects coordinator as unclassified employees are replaced. Period. So, okay, so there's a problem here, and that is that if the United States, when lawyers talk about real estate, the lot that they talk about is always called Blackacre. And if there are 2 lots, Blackacre and Whiteacre, I suppose nowadays we can't do that anymore, but so when 2 lawyers are talking about the law of land titles, they'll discuss a mythical piece of property called Blackacre. Well, if A deeds Blackacre to B with the remainder in C and B dies, what happens? Well, C takes Blackacre. That's kind of the way it goes. Okay, so right now, everybody in this article is concerned about records concerning Blackacre, because if Blackacre is returned to the government of Guam by the U.S. government, it'll be deeded to the Ancestral Lands Commission, who will try to figure out who the pre-condemnation owners were and heirship. So it's going to, given the amount of time that's gone by, those papers are going to be really critical. But there's something else that's more immediate than that nobody wants to talk about. And here it is. If you were one of those unfortunates that stood in line and you're still basically waiting in line because you couldn't swap places with somebody else, you are going to need access to those papers if you are going to have a claim, because the government of Guam settled the case with the Department of Justice that based on the fact that the Chamorro Land Trust was racially discriminatory. So it was up until that case was settled, all you had to do was come in and show that you were, quote, Chamorro, unquote, that you had a great-great-great-great-grandfather whose name was Maguaduk, and that you were Chamorro. That's all you had to show. Now, under the settlement, that doesn't do it anymore. Now you have to show that you own real property that was taken by the United States in eminent domain, or that you farmed real property that was taken by the United States in eminent domain. And there was a story in the paper that said that somebody went to Chamorro Land Trust and they sent them to Guam Ancestral Lands Commission and said, that's where all the records are. Therese Terlahi took issue. Why are they sending people to Guam Ancestral Lands Commission? Well, obviously, everybody in the legislature really needs to know about that settlement, because part of the settlement was they had to amend the law to take the Chamorro out of it and put the pre-condemnation ownership into it. So this is something that's going to come along and bite really, really hard. And the bite is going to be increased dramatically, because now many of these records are gone. And once the termites eat the records, you can't come back and do some kind of radical surgery on the termite and get those records out of the termites. It's done.
I'm really amazed that this wasn't even thought of even 10 years ago, When I was living in the States in the early 2000s, I had friends who worked for companies that all they did was digitize records. It's just not a new concept.
No, it isn't. And I've given credit to Chris Duenas before. When I started practicing law back in 1974, if you went to the Department of Land Management, which was in the old administration building that was torn down, it was on the first floor on the end closest to the courthouse, no air conditioning. And some of the records were in these gigantic books that were, like 2.5 feet square. You open them up and there was these huge papers in there with a lot of pen and ink entries on them. That was the state of the land records in those days. And Chris Duenas was able to put it all online on a computer up at the Department of Land Management. If you know how the system works, you can go up there and do real fast title research. And I applauded Governor Calvo when he had the Department of Land Management absorb the Chamorro Land Trust Commission and the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission into the Department of Land Management. So we had one director for those 3 agencies. It seemed to make a lot of common sense because they all dealt with land records. They all dealt with the same sort of thing. 2 of the 3 had their own boards, etc. And boy, was I wrong. What's his name? Bora just turned out to be a huge disaster in that position. And that's when it should have been done, during the time that the Ancestral Lands Commission was actually under the direction of the Department of Land Management. So the way it is now, this is going to be really, really hard to sort out. And as a result, a lot of folks who have been counting on getting those Chamorro Land Trust leases are just going to get a broken heart out of it instead. There's a lot of false promises and a lot of folks who don't really want to talk about what that settlement meant. So I see these huge chickens that are all going to come home to rest here soon. All right, so that's what I had to say on the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission versus the Chamorro Land Trust applicants. It's time to go to Churchill Downs, and I've got Drive-Through Jack waiting for me in Churchill Downs. And he has a comment, but he says he's been waiting so long he's kind of crumbly. So we'll get to him in just a second.
Santa's come in and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite My Christmas loan with an annual percentage interest rate as low as 3.99% and up to $50,000. And with the new Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you can have the flexibility of using your money when you want to, where you want to. My Christmas Loan contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas merrier this year. Equal opportunity lender. Credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Well, Jose just played the call to the post at Churchill Downs, which is traditional at racetracks, but we really need to get in character for this next caller. Can you play his? Yeah. The theme song of Drive-Through Jack. All you guys who spent time marching to a bugle call know that that is called chow call. Drive-Through Jack, tell us about why you're crumbly.
Oh, good afternoon there, Bob. Yes, I'm on my way home. I'm stuck in traffic. I still haven't figured out what's for supper, but we'll get there. I just called because I heard you earlier. I was in and out of the car, and I heard you earlier speak about the Crumley case, about how the teenager now is being charged as an adult.
Uh-huh.
And I was wondering, so the teenager is being charged as an adult for the shootings, but how are the parents being charged for contributing to, I guess, the delinquents of a minor, or being charged for
they're
parents
being
are being charged because
what it amounts to is negligent entrustment. And I spent a fair amount of time on negligent entrustment when I went through it before, but that's basically what he's being charged for. And I'm going to head you off here at the pass, Jack.
Hello?
I'm going to head you off at the pass. The fact that he's being tried as an adult.
Hello?
This is going to be a kind of a short conversation. We're past the hello part already, Jack. We lost Jack. I don't know if you're still listening, Jack, but I'm going to head you off at the pass. The fact that he's being charged as an adult does not preclude the state from building a case based on negligent entrustment of a firearm to a minor. There's no relation back there. There's no estoppel, etc. Okay, well, that was probably the shortest call on record that we've ever had with Drive Through Jack.
I don't know if you read my comments. I actually had that question early on. If someone is charged as an adult, can they go ahead and charge somebody for negligence of the juvenile status?
Of course.
So, but there's nothing at all that affects either charge.
No,
Interesting.
they're two separate undertakings, and yeah, it's going to work for the prosecution. But as Turley pointed out, it's going to be a hard case to make, and it's really going to be interesting to see how the left reacts to this.
Well, I know the two separate incidences, what happened in Michigan and what happened in Waukesha, Wisconsin, but I did find it interesting that they were they held back on calling it a terrorist attack in Waukesha, but the shooting is definitely a terrorist attack because it's a shooting. I think there are more people that were killed in the parade massacre in Waukesha than there was in Michigan. Not that it matters, but I just found it interesting how the reluctance to call it terrorist activity happened in Waukesha.
The kid shot 4 people, and in Waukesha, the car killed 5, or the SUV.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot it's the car.
Yeah, it was the SUV that did it. So of course, one of the really important things is the first question you have to ask yourself: if the kid had been an African American, how different would things have been, right? So if he gets off, then the fact that he's not an African American will be the reason that he got off. If he doesn't get off, the reason that he doesn't get off is because everybody in the trial was racist. How that works, I don't know. But when in doubt, reach for the R word.
Here's another detail that isn't discussed much. This was a handgun that he utilized in the shooting, and not an assault rifle.
Yeah.
But no words of assault handgun.
No. In fact, we don't even know what kind of gun it was. Now, we have a pretty good idea of Alec Baldwin's choice of firearms when he does these things. It had to have been a revolver if he pulled the hammer back, right? It was not an automatic. I mean, a semi-automatic.
Well, he didn't pull the trigger, so it had to be automatic.
I suppose.
Just being disinformation like the rest of the media.
Really. Okay, we got a few minutes left to go here, so I'm going to at least start on BCG versus GIDA. BCG is the Blue Ocean nonprofit that we've been told bought all of the assets of Guam Regional Medical City. Now, I've been told that they bought the building but not the land. I don't understand how anyone could say that he bought a building but not the land, because one of the fundamental principles of realty is that when you build a permanent structure, a building on land, the building becomes part of the realty. So if you have a modular home or something on wheels or something like that, and you sell the land or you sell the home, now the land doesn't go with it. But GRMC is pretty firmly anchored in terra firma there in the site. I don't understand how anyone could buy the building and not the land. I could understand how someone could buy the assets and could take something like a perpetual license in the building or something like that, something that would give unlimited use to the building, but you can't do that without affecting land tenure.
We did have a caller on Friday, Bob. They didn't want to go on the air, but said that they did have a relative who had developed some buildings on land that they did not own. And so they're the owners of the buildings, but not of the land. But they didn't go into detail.
Yeah, I hear this, you know.
This is here on Guam, yeah.
You hear these things, and I never hear them from people who understand real estate law. You know, because if you build a building on Blackacre, right, and you don't take title to Blackacre, the owner of Blackacre can say, you ain't coming on this land. Oh, but I own the building. I don't care. You ain't coming on this land. So I've heard that before. In fact, even the government tried to do it with the building where the old legislature was, the temporary. They said, we didn't buy the land, we just bought the building. Well, it turned out it was a long-term lease. Yeah. Okay, next item on the card here is BCG versus Gita, and I won't be able to finish this, but I'll get to it. I'll finish it up tomorrow. Sale of GRMC could impact its qualifying certificate. Guam Medical City still has 14 years of tax breaks remaining under its qualifying certificate with the government of Guam. But the pending sale of GRMC announced last week would change things according to the Guam Economic Development Authority. The tax breaks granted under the hospital's qualifying certificate can't be transferred to a new owner without Gita's written permission. But as a nonprofit organization, the buyer, Blue Continent Healthcare Guam Medical City, might not need some of the tax breaks. GRMC declined to comment when asked what will happen to its qualifying certificate under the new ownership. GRMC is really a master when it comes to clear communications. So I got 5 more minutes, and I'm not going to be able to finish this. I've got Utah William online, so I'm going to break with tradition here and not finish the card item and go straight to Utah so William can get his 2 cents worth in before the end of the program. Go for it, William.
Hi, Judge. No, I just a quick question regarding the conversation you're having, right, or the topic you're talking about right now. I think the number one point, which is I think a lot of people on Guam are asking the same thing, is BOG? Am I correct? It's called BOG now?
BCG.
BCG. Is BCG going to function identically to GRMC, or is BCG actually going to be a not-for-profit hospital?
Well, BCG is a nonprofit corporation, so the hospital has to function as a nonprofit. Otherwise, it's going to have to pay taxes. That's pretty simple. And they've said that they're going to keep the same people on board and improve operations. But what else are they going to say?
So there's a lot of questions with this. So the building is bought by a not-for-profit company, but the insides were not, correct?
They said that BCG bought all of the assets of GRMC, which would be all of the equipment, et cetera, all of the if you understand real estate, it would be all of the removable fixtures and all of the equipment, et cetera, and vehicles and stuff like that. Now, they haven't come out and said that they bought the building but not the land. But people have been saying that, and I hold that that's not possible. That would be like saying I sold 1,000 feet of air rights above my house to Elon Musk because he wants to park his spacecraft above my house. You can't. It doesn't work that way.
Right. You had a caller. I don't recall his name. That was called in a week or so ago when last time I called in and was talking with you about the same subject, and he was pretty knowledgeable about the dealings that happened there. And if I recall what he said, he stated that the equipment and everything that's inside the building was not purchased, and the land as well. And so my question is are they planning on just having, GRMC, the building itself, be the 503 not-for-profit organization that's out of Delaware, but the operation of the hospital itself be under the FISPA, or I forgot the exact verbiage. Hang on, the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982.
Yeah, I looked that up, and I don't see that TEFRA has a whole lot to do with this. It's all tied up in various aspects of the Section 501 of the IRC. Yeah, good conversation, Utah William, but I gotta go. We'll see you tomorrow, okay?
Okay.
So long.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A respected political giant. I'm Paul Stevens, Fox News. Former Senator and Republican presidential candidate Bob Dole has died.
Bob Dole, a senator from Kansas for more than a quarter century and a member of the House before that, has died. He recently announced he'd been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Dole was the Senate Republican leader for nearly 12 years. In 1996, he was the Republican nominee for president, an unsuccessful bid to defeat President Bill Clinton's re-election. He was also President Gerald Ford's running mate in his unsuccessful campaign in 1976. Wounded in combat during World War II, Dole was an advocate for veterans, playing a lead role in the establishment of a World War II memorial in Washington, D.C. Jared Halpern, Fox News.
A Detroit area artist whose studio was where the parents of the student charged in a deadly high school shooting were found by police is cooperating with authorities and insists he did not know the couple had stayed there overnight. That's according to attorney Clarence Dass, representing artist Andrzej Sikora. Several states now reporting cases of the Omicron COVID-19 variant. National Institutes of Health Director Dr. Francis Collins saying indoor mask wearing might still be a good idea in some cases.
But I think it's more where you're going to be when you travel and what kind of gatherings are going to happen. And here's where the CDC's recommendations, which are still in place for 80% plus of counties, is that if you're indoors, you should be wearing a mask with other people who may or may not be vaccinated. That's the best way to protect yourself.
Dr. Collins on NBC's Meet the Press. This year's college football playoff field is set. Cincinnati plays Alabama in the Cotton Bowl. Michigan faces Georgia in the Orange Bowl. The winners face each other January 10th in Indianapolis. America is listening to Fox News.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now. from the Fox News Podcasts Network.
I'm Ben Domenech, publisher of The Federalist, and I'm inviting you to join a new conversation with the smartest thinkers out there about the country and where we're going. It's the Ben Domenech Podcast. You can subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, FoxNewsPodcast.com, or wherever you download your podcasts. This new show will feature deep dive interviews with newsmakers and some of your favorite Fox News analysts. I hope you'll join me. Subscribe to the Ben Domenech Podcast.
Subscribe and listen now by going to FoxNewsPodcasts.com.
The Biden White House laying out a recent framework regarding space policy, with some now wondering what might be considered an act of war in space.
The answer to what constitutes an act of war in space is not really clear. I'll say clearly defined or understood, and perhaps there's been less thinking in that than in other areas and other domains. What we are not, though, is we are not the sheriff in town. We are a military force, but we firmly advocate for regulation and conduct and standards of norms behavior that everybody should follow and that we should follow as well.
U.S. Space Force Vice Chief of Space Operations General David Thompson on Fox News Sunday. Gasoline prices dropping a bit. The average U.S. price of regular grade gasoline down 2 cents over the past 2 weeks to $3.46 a gallon, according to the Lundberg survey. It was a three-peat at the weekend movie box office.
Encanto, #1 on the weekend charts for a second week.
The fate of the family is going to come down to you.
Disney's animated tale with original music from Lin-Manuel Miranda earning $12.7 million in ticket sales. Ghostbusters Afterlife takes the #2 spot in its third week in theaters, selling $10.4 million worth of tickets. And #3 is House of Gucci, starring Lady Gaga and Adam Driver, with a $6.8 million box office take. Kathleen Maloney, Fox News.
A Norwegian cruise line ship with at least 10 passengers and crew members infected with COVID-19 has docked in New Orleans. The Norwegian breakaway making prior stops in Belize, Honduras, and Mexico. NCL saying all of the identified COVID-19 cases involve people without symptoms, and each person on board was being tested for the coronavirus before disembarking. Officials saying anyone who tests positive would either go directly home or self-isolate in accommodations provided by the cruise line. I'm Paul Stevens, and this is Fox News.
Oh, KFC, oh, KFC, original and crispy. Happy holidays, folks. Colonel Sanders here. KFC is here to help feed your holiday hunger with our 6 or 12-piece family meal. They both come with your choice of our delicious KFC sides, biscuits, and a personal gift from the Colonel. 2 free glass food containers. Have a safe and happy holiday season from KFC Guam. It's finger licking good.
Fox Bits.
Your insider's cheat code to gaming. I'm Eamon Dignam. The Game Awards 2021 is set to take place on December 9th at the Microsoft Theater in Los Angeles, featuring a live audience of invited guests. Sting and other musical performances scheduled to take place. The Police singer and bassist set to perform What Could Have Been from the Netflix adaptation of League of Legends, Arcane.
Oh, we had everything. And you broke me and left these pieces.
Nominees for the Game of the Year include Bethesda's time-traveling shooter, Deathloop, Electronic Arts co-op puzzle game, It Takes Two, Capcom